This is the Attack Shark X3, and I've been using the Attack Shark X3 for basically the past year. And I think that it is the best mouse for almost everyone and almost anyone. This is a very budget mouse, but I won't tell you the price until we get further into the video. So let's have a look at the specs of the mouse. People will often overlook the shape of the mouse because, it's probably not that big of a deal when you have all these tech specs inside, but it's nice. It's basically a one-to-one copy of the G Pro Superlight, so it's effectively cloning it. And to talk about, tech specs, you have these wireless connectivities, choose both this. You have off, which means USB mode. You have BT, which means Bluetooth mode. You have 2.4, which means 2.4 gigahertz mode. And it comes with a 2.4 gigahertz dongle, this guy right here. And then it even has a spot to store it. When you open up this compartment right here, you just pop this off, take it out. And then you can take this guy and put it in. Fit it in just like that. And obviously, you can put the back on. So that's really, really nice. And then you get USB-C up at the front. And it's a very nice mouse overall. It uses the PixArt PAW3395 sensor, which is a common flagship of, I think, last year. Like, it was seen in the Pulsar X2, the NGames OP1, and many more mice. But the way that mouse sensors go is it's kind of hardware based where, it starts out as a new technology and then the sensor is hard to come by for cheap. And eventually as time progresses, they become way more cheap. So that's what ended up happening here. And that's why it's in such a budget mouse. All right, let's compare it with the G Pro Superlight because that one is, what this one kind of mimics. The G Pro Superlight, the G Pro Superlight specifically, not the 2, has micro USB and all the past ones have USB-C, but that's an upside for this one if you're comparing it with just the basic G Pro Superlight. On the G Pro Superlight, you get what's called a Hero sensor, this is the name, versus the PixArt PAW3395. They really got to give these guys better sensor names. But the Attack Sharks comes in at 26,000 DPI, which is pretty dang high. And the G Pro Superlight comes in at 25,600 DPI, which is lower. And I'm not even going to say, this one's better because that 400 higher DPI. You won't really notice that in the actual game, right? The Attack Shark X3 has a 650 IPS, while the G Pro Superlight has a 400 IPS. And that's inches per second. It's about the amount of inches you can go by. Let's be so real, you're not moving your mouse 600 inches per second, 400 inches per second, or anything like that. So I don't think that this number actually really matters, even though yes, it does play in favor of this, which is 1/5 of the 300 milliamp hours. So this guy should have better battery life in theory. Grams on the X3. I actually don't know what that is specifically, but here it is on screen of what that actually is, right? So yes, this one is not as good, but similar to all the other specs of these mice, you're never gonna really notice this change, right? So where this one is, this one's better, this one's better, this one's better. It's not that much better. And where the other one's better, it's also not that much better. So the specs just in and of itself are actually very, very similar. Talking about weight, the G Pro Superlight, the Superlight one, reportedly comes in at 63 grams. And this guy, without a Superlight naming scheme, and it's just a regular mouse, guess how much it comes in at? 50 grams. Specifically 49 grams actually, but people have weighed it at higher. So this guy is lighter, seems to have a better sensor, seems to have a better battery. And it also comes in for way cheaper. And you might ask, how much cheaper? And I also don't know. Let me read my script. It comes in at $37.29, as opposed to the G Pro Superlight that comes in at $140. That's a pretty sizable difference, where you can get, more than 3.5 Attack Shark X3s for one G Pro Superlight. So in my opinion, that's very worth it. If you want to spend the money to get a G Pro Superlight, I feel like it's a good decision. And I'll talk a bit more about why you'd want a G Pro Superlight over this, even though all the specs seem to lean towards this guy. But, this is a pretty nice mouse. And other companies, before we just talk about the G Pro Superlight, sell nicer mice, right? This guy's an older mouse. And right now, I'm not sure if I'd buy it. Right, I'm a bit iffy on it, where people like EvoMaker had their RT100 Click for way cheaper and has not too bad specs. But honestly, if you want a new mouse, this guy's not too bad. There are cheaper PixArt PAW3395s, I think, like that specific sensor, but this one is pretty good for what it is, feels nice, and I've liked it overall. So Logitech has a competitor to this, or I guess this one competed with the Logitech. They have the Logitech G305. And it's a bit more than this, but let me just say flat out, this guy blows that one out of the water. I don't even want to compare them. That's why I went to the Superlight. This guy is like so much better. But here's my personal thoughts on the X3, right? Because I've talked a lot about specs and whatnot, and it's good in my opinion, right? I've had no issues with it. 1000 hertz polling is perfectly fine. The sensor is perfectly fine. I've had this one issue, right? Where when I have it plugged in, it sometimes won't pick up. And I'll have to unplug the mouse, replug the dongle, just like and then it'll connect. But that just happened like 2 days ago. It's worked fine for me for like a year, right? People complain about the skates as well on this guy. I've had no issues with it. I use it on this cheap Minis 4 mouse pad I got, and it feels fine. It's not really a big issue. But if you want to buy skate dot or glass dots, they're glass dot skates and they feel much nicer apparently. And it's still way cheaper than just buying, you know, the Superlight. I haven't really felt any lag. I've used 2.4 gigahertz and it just feels nice, right? I use it at the 2400 DPI setting because I honestly don't need anything higher. And that's another issue with the DPI setting in my opinion, where nobody's actually gonna really be using it at such high DPI unless you're like a competitive gamer, you know, but then you would get something else. You'd get a final mouse, right? Like you wouldn't get something like this in the first place. I think this mouse is perfect for basically everyone, right? It's light enough for gamers, it's aesthetic enough for people that want an aesthetic setup, it's cheap enough for people that want a cheap device, and it is as comparable to a Logitech, you know, like a nice Logitech mouse. So for people that want a pro gamer thing, this thing's actually not too bad. And overall, it's nice, right? But people will still buy the Logitech G305, and people will be like, why? But it's similar to the Android and iPhone debate, right? I can argue, oh, you know, my phone is cheaper than your phone, has 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, a better CPU. You know, I've done that. Nobody cares. They want the software from the Apple phone. They want the security of the Apple phone. They want, you know, what they've learned from the Apple phone. You know, all the like quirks of it. And for a mouse, that's different, right? You get the software from Logitech, which is better than this software. You get the niceness of a Logitech device. You get the reliability of a Logitech device. Like this guy's maybe breaking on me this year, I'm not so sure. You get the customer support, you get like everything, you get the warranty. Where this guy, you just kind of get a mouse. It's a mouse, nice, but you don't have all these little nice to haves. And also you can waltz into a store and buy that one. You can't waltz into a store and buy this one. And also it's by a Chinese brand, which people find sketchy. Okay? That's fine. But I really, really like it. And if you want one, get one.